Students, now we are going to study the third lesson of your 10th standard Kumar Bharati textbook. It is a chapter named On Wings of Courage. So this chapter is about an Indian marshal whose name was Marshal Arjan Singh. Air Force Marshal Arjan Singh, an icon of India's military history, will always be remembered as a war hero who had successfully led a young IAF during this 1965 Indo-Pak War. Indo-Pak means India-Pakistan War. So 1965 में इंडिया पाकिस्तान का जो वॉर हुआ था, सो एयरफोर्स मार्शल अर्जन सिंह ही हैड लेड अ यंग IAF यानी इंडियन एयरफोर्स. IAF stands for Indian Air Force, short form है. Remember this. The only officer to attain the highest post of Marshal, the Air Force equivalent to the Army's 5-star Field Marshal, Singh was a fearless and exceptional pilot who had flown more than 60 different types of aircraft. Now, what does this mean? The only officer to attain the highest post of Marshal, the Air Force equivalent to Army's 5-star Field Marshal. And जैसे Army में 5, like in Army, the level at which a 5-star Field Marshal is, the Air Force equivalent of that was the highest post of the Marshal. Captain Arjan Singh was a very fearless, यानी डर नहीं लगता था, an exceptional pilot, and he had flown more than 60 different types of aircraft. He played a major role in transforming the IAF into one of the most potent air forces globally and the fourth biggest in the world. His contribution to the Indian Air Force is monumental to the least. The IAF grew with him. He was the epitome of military leadership in classical sense, and it is therefore not surprising that he was honored with the rank of Air Force Marshal. Former Vice Chief of IAF Kapil Kak said. He had played a major role in transforming the IAF into one of the most potent. Potent means powerful, यानी ताकतवर. So Captain Marshal Arjan Singh had a major role in transforming the Indian Air Force into one of the most powerful air forces globally, means internationally in the world, and it was fourth biggest in the world. His contribution was monumental. Monumental, we use this word to describe when something is of great importance. See, monumental means of great importance or enormous to the least. The IAF grew with him. He was the epitome. Epitome means a perfect example. यानी like Sachin Tendulkar is the epitome of a batting master class. यानी सबसे अच्छी बैटिंग का epitome कौन है? सचिन तेंदुलकर. तो epitome यानी सबसे अच्छा फॉर्म, सबसे अच्छा रूप, a perfect example of military leadership in classical sense, and therefore not surprising that he was honored with the rank of Air Force Marshal. So this was not at all surprising that he was honored with the rank of Air Force Marshal. Who said this? Indian Air Force Chief, Vice Chief of Indian Air Force, Kapil Kak. Singh was honored with the rank of Marshal on Republic Day in 2002. Sam, Hormuzji, Framji, Jamshedji, Manek Shaw and K.M. Cariappa were the only two army generals honored with the rank of Field Marshal. So Singh was honored with the rank of Marshal on Republic Day in 2002, that means 26 January. And Sam, Hormuzji, Framji, Jamshedji, Manek Shaw, and K.M. Cariappa, these two persons were the army generals honored with the rank of Field Marshal. Known as a man of few words, Singh was not only a fearless pilot but also had profound knowledge about air power and applied it in a wide spectrum of areas. Singh had assiduously led the IAF during the 1965 war and denied success to Pakistani Air Force, though it was better equipped with American support. His most outstanding contribution was during war, said Kak. Now Singh was known as a man of few words. That means he didn't speak a lot because he was a man of few words. He was a very fearless pilot and also had a vast knowledge of air power, and he applied it in a wide spectrum, means a lot of areas. Assiduously, saying it assiduously. Assiduously means working hard and showing careful attention to details. That means doing everything carefully or working hard and like taking account of every little detail. He had led the IAF during the 1965 war against Pakistan, and because of him, Pakistani Air Force was denied success. Because of him, Pakistani Air Force was denied success, and even though it had the support of the Americans. His most outstanding contribution was during that war. Commending his role in the war, Y.B. Chauhan, the then defense minister, had written, Air Marshal Arjun Singh is a jewel of a person, quite efficient and firm, unexcitable but a very able leader. So the then defense minister, तब जो defense minister थे कौन थे? Y.B. Chauhan. In 2002, he wrote, Air Marshal Arjun Singh is a jewel of a person. Jewel यानी मोती, गहने, of यानी वो हीरे जैसे आदमी है, quite efficient and firm, unexcitable but a very able leader. In 1944, the Marshal had led a squadron against the Japanese during the Arakan campaign, flying close air support missions during the crucial Imphal campaign, and later assisted the advance of the Allied forces to Yangon, formerly Rangoon. 1944 में भी Marshal, he had led a squadron against the Japanese during the Arakan campaign, flying close air support mission during the crucial Imphal campaign. यानी इम्फाल में भी उन्होंने लीड किया था एक स्क्वाड्रन को, और एडवांस यानी चढ़ाई असिस्ट की थी एलाइड फोर्सेस की यांगून को. In recognition of his feat, he was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross DFC on the spot by the Supreme Allied Commander of Southeast Asia, the first Indian pilot to have received it. Singh was selected for the Empire Pilot Training Course at Royal Air Force RAF Cranwell in 1938 when he was 19 years old. He retired from service in 1969. Like because of the feat, like when he helped the Allied forces advance to Yangon, he was awarded with the Distinguished Flying Cross on the spot by the Supreme Commander, Allied Commander of Southeast Asia, and he was the first Indian to receive it. यानी पहला इंडियन था जिसको वो मिला था. He was also selected for Empire Pilot Training Course. कहाँ पे? रॉयल एयरफोर्स RAF क्रैनवेल में 1938 में, जब वो सिर्फ 19 साल का था. वो रिटायर हुए 1969 में. Singh was born on April 15th, 1919 in Lyalpur, now Faisalabad, Pakistan, and completed his education and at Montgomery, now Sahiwal, Pakistan. His first assignment on being commissioned was to fly Westland Wapiti biplanes in the northwestern frontier province as a member of the No. 1 RIAF squadron. He was born on 15th April 1919 in Lyalpur, which is now called as Faisalabad, Pakistan, and he completed his education. उन्होंने पढ़ाई की Montgomery से, जो अभी सहीवाल बोलते हैं उसको. उनका फर्स्ट असाइनमेंट था कि उन्हें वेस्टलैंड वापिटी बाईप्लेन्स यानी ओल्ड टाइप ऑफ एयरक्राफ्ट, यानी पुराने टाइप के जो एयरक्राफ्ट होते थे जिसमें दो होते थे पेयर विंग्स के, एक के ऊपर एक. Old type of aircraft having two pairs of wings, one above the other. After a brief stint with the newly formed No. 2 RIAF squadron where the Marshal flew against the tribal forces, he later moved back to No. 1 squadron as a flying officer to fly the Hawker Hurricane. He was promoted to the rank of squadron leader in 1944. After a brief stint in a short period of work, after like a short period of work with the newly formed No. 2 RIF squadron where the Marshal flew against the tribal forces, he moved back to No. 1 squadron. यानी उनको वापस No. 1 squadron में डाल दिया था. कैसे? एक फ्लाइंग ऑफिसर के पोस्ट पे टू हॉकर हरिकेन उड़ाने के लिए. फिर उनको स्क्वाड्रन लीडर बना दिया था 1944 में. For his role in successfully leading the squadron in combat, he was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross in 1944. On August 15, 1947, he achieved the unique honor of leading a flypast of over 100 IAF aircraft over the Red Fort in Delhi. Now he was chosen as the squadron leader, so he led the squadron in the combat and he was awarded the DFC in 1944. On Independence Day 1947, that like it wasn't declared then, but on August 15, 1947, he achieved the unique honor of leading a flypast. Flypast means a ceremonial flight of an aircraft passing over a place. So रेड फोर्ट के ऊपर से उन्होंने उड़ाया था रैली एयरक्राफ्ट्स की. After his promotion to the rank of wing commander, he attended the Royal Staff College at the UK. Immediately after Indian independence, he commanded Ambala in the rank of group captain. In 1947, he was promoted to the rank of Air Commodore and took over as Air Officer commanding of an operational command, which later came to be known as Western Air Command. When he was promoted to the rank of wing commander, he attended the Royal Staff College at UK, and after Indian independence, he commanded Ambala in the rank of group captain. And in 1947, उनको Air Commodore बना दिया था, and he took over as the Air Officer commanding of an operational command, और बाद में उसे कहा गया Western Air Command. Singh had the distinction of having the longest tenure as AOC of an operational base, initially from 1949 to 52 and then again from 1957 to 1961. After his promotion to the rank of Air Vice Marshal, he was appointed as the AOC in C of an operational command. Towards the end of the 1962 war, he was appointed as the Deputy Chief of the Air Staff and he became the Vice Chief of Air Staff in 1963. He was the overall commander of the Joint Air Training Exercise Shiksha held between IAF, RAF and RAAF. So he had the distinction like उन्होंने सबसे ज़्यादा दौर गुजारा था 1949 से 52 और 57 से 61 AOC के इसमें यानी एयर ऑफिसर कमांडिंग के रूप में, और जब वो एयर वाइस मार्शल बने उनको AOC इन C का कमांड दे दिया था. टुवर्ड द एंड ऑफ 1962 वॉर जब ख़त्म हो रही थी, उन्हें डेप्यूटी चीफ ऑफ एयर स्टाफ बना दिया था एंड ही बिकेम द वाइस चीफ ऑफ द एयर स्टाफ इन 1963. ही वॉज ऑल्सो द कमांडर ऑफ जॉइंट ट्रेनिंग एक्सरसाइज बिटवीन इंडियन एयरफोर्स, रॉयल एयरफोर्स एंड रॉयल ऑस्ट्रेलियन एयरफोर्स. On August 1, 1964, in the rank of Air Marshal, the Marshal of the Air Force Arjun Singh took over reins of IAF at a time when it was still rebuilding itself and was gearing up to meet new challenges. Means on 1st August of 1964, Arjun Singh, he took over the reins. Took over the reins means took over control. That means he took over as the Marshal of the Air Force of IAF. When it was rebuilding, यानी जब वो वापस से खुद को build कर रहा था, and gearing up means getting ready. Singh was the first air chief to keep his flying currency till his CAS rank. Having flown over 60 different types of aircraft from pre-World War II era biplanes to the more contemporary Gnats and Vampires, he has also flown in transport aircraft like the Super Constellation. He was the first air chief to keep his flying currency. Flying currency means up-to-date skills and experience of flying aircraft. यानी हर पायलट ने कितने घंटे कितना टाइम उड़ाया है प्लेन, कौन से प्लेन उड़ाया है, वो सब मिला के फ्लाइंग करेंसी बनती है. उसकी CAS रैंक भी उसमें बनती है. Having flown over 60 different types of aircraft from pre-World War II era biplanes for contemporary. Contemporary means अभी का यानी present times. And Vampires, he has also flown in transport aircraft. यानी उसने ट्रांसपोर्ट जो इधर उधर सामान ट्रांसपोर्ट करने के लिए यूज़ होते हैं वो भी उड़ा है. In 1965, when Pakistan launched its Operation Grand Slam with an armored thrust targeted at the vital town of Akhnur, Singh led IAF through the war with courage, determination and professional skill. He inspired IAF to victory despite the constraints imposed on the full-scale use of Air Force combat power. लाइक जब पाकिस्तान ने 1965 में उसका ऑपरेशन लॉन्च किया ग्रैंड स्लैम, तो सिंह अखनूर एक टाउन था, छोटा शहर था, जहाँ पे उन्होंने आईएएफ को, ही लेड आईएएफ थ्रू द वॉर विथ करेज यानी साहस, डिटर्मिनेशन एंड प्रोफेशनल स्किल, एंड ही इंस्पायर्ड आईएएफ यानी इंडियन एयरफोर्स की जीत हुई थी डिस्पाइट द कंस्ट्रेंट्स मीन रिस्ट्रिक्शन यानी जो आपको रोकता है, जबकि फुल स्केल एयरफोर्स कॉम्बैट पावर यूज़ नहीं की जा सकती थी, इसका ये कंस्ट्रेंट था. Singh was awarded Padma Vibhushan for his astute leadership of Air Force during the war. Subsequently, in recognition of the Air Force contribution during the war, the rank of the CAS was upgraded and Arjun Singh became the first Air Chief Marshal of the Indian Air Force. He remained a flyer to the end of his tenure in IAF, visiting forward bases and units and flying with squadrons. He retired in August 1969, thereupon accepting ambassadorship to Switzerland. He was Lieutenant Governor of Delhi from December 1989 to December 1990. Like, he was awarded Padma Vibhushan, which is the highest civilian honor in our country, for his astute means sharp and intelligent, for his intelligent leadership of the Air Force, in which we won. And in recognition of that, the rank of CAS was upgraded and he became the first Air Chief Marshal of the Indian Air Force. He, like, till the end of his tenure with IAF, he remained a flyer visiting forward bases. Forward bases means a secured forward operating military position. And he retired. When did he retire? August 1969, and he accepted ambassadorship to Switzerland. He was Lieutenant Governor of Delhi also from December 1989 to December 1990 for a year. Having been a source of inspiration to all the personnel of armed forces through the years, the government conferred the rank of the Marshal of the Air Force upon Arjun Singh in January 2002, making him the first and the only 5-star rank officer with the Indian Air Force. He had been a source of inspiration to all the personnel of armed forces, यानी सबके लिए वो एक इंस्पिरेशन थे सालों के थ्रू, और सरकार ने उन्हें मार्शल का रैंक दिया एयरफोर्स के जनवरी 2002 में, जिसने उन्हें पहला और आखिरी 5-स्टार रैंक ऑफिसर इंडियन एयरफोर्स का बनाया.